Hello, this is Christopher Edwards. Hello, this is Christopher Edwards, add mods in the engine presentation video, and this is the workflow and improvements based upon the matching piece. So the first one was, the first real workflow was from Philip Kay about taking a high poly mesh of bricks and then projecting that high poly onto a low poly plane, which had like 1 or 2 polygons, and then creating those normals and pushing it across. This worked really, really well. There were some small problems at the beginning where if you did half of it and then projected it half the UV onto another half, it was empty. The ambient occlusion was so bright you couldn't get actually a decent texture. So you had to do the half of a wall and then symmetry that across, so you just projected it again. But no double maps or anything like that. But for the sake of that, for like a 5-minute change around, it saved probably it could have saved about 3-4 weeks. And then to get the better normal out of it, because in this version here it's okay, but the one I had in the beginning wasn't that great, so what I had to do was take it and then give it like 4 or 5 layers on top of each other and overlay them to get more detail out of it. Then they were taken into a program called handplane, where it just took an object tangent of the map and then just gave it more detail. This idea of like using the walls can be used quite a lot. It's really useful, but some things you can't, because it's just you need the polygons there in the first place. So the next one I went on to was this one through tiling, where taking like the texture of a picture and then saying, well, we're going to move the UVs around it and then make it fit. This is really useful for small little objects, but then really the main problem is there's no normal map unless you make it from a filter through Photoshop, and there's no ambient occlusion, which you can do off the normal map, but it's not really worth it because I don't think you'd need it, because you've got the like everything already set up ready, so it's not really worth doing it. It's only specular, but you can make specular anyway, but I don't think it for what it did, it works, and you can't really see that much difference, so it doesn't really matter that much. So then the next thing I went on to was towards the end, just looking at like cell shading effects through. So this is example here where he took a ball and just made different, like improved. I did this to the column in the beginning. It didn't look that great,
what the level was
but
meant to be in the game than it was. But
I think like again maybe characters benefit from this more than anything else.
Looks good, or anything that was kept. So the original idea was just to rip it apart and just change it as quickly as possible. The outcome was pretty good for what happened. This is the end outcome. I'm pretty happy with how it ended. I think on the general, just looking at it, you can tell how much improvement has actually happened, and you know, everything's been redone. There's new stuff like the fog in the background. There's the sky dome that's custom made. The fire of the lights are working. It looks like it's been had some actual care and attention added to it, and it looks a lot better.
So the techniques used best in engine for this piece has literally been really material editor and using that to the best use that I know and been taught through either talking to lecturers or finding stuff out. So say stuff like the fire here, this fire here is really just, it's just a material of a flame literally, and then it has a setup to say that it is moving there. So I'll show this through here. It was shown to be quite a dirty way to do it, but it does what the job it needs for how small it is. So this is the timing of like this part up here is the timing for how many times it's gonna flicker. So if you look at it from this way, the way it'll flicker every couple. There you go, like a flicker there. But this here, this part here isn't used. That was more to be like how it flicker, how something's gonna change another part of it so it looks like a bigger, better flame. And that's gonna be through an offset, through a bump offset for it. Because the opacity there through desaturating the image of a flame and then using vertex color to remove stuff so you can't really see it because it's on a plain version there. But the emissive is literally just what it looks like with the vertex color through the alpha instead of the red, which is strange to look at. And then that is just put those two together, but you can use that into there anyway. On the this wall here, just bring it up. It's one of the many materials that actually has vertex paint on it, vertex color on it, sorry, compared to just having an alpha channel already and just saying this moss is going to be added together through the lerp to this wall. But if you had a normal alpha channel, it'd be white here as it is, but black to say where you want part to this on here, of part of the moss on there. But with the vertex color, when you use this mesh paint here, you can just turn this down to here and then paint on top wherever you want onto there, and it will stay on there. It doesn't do it on duplicated objects, so this wall wouldn't be the same as that one because they're both painted. But doing that again, it also helped with something like with this specularity setup, where it's the same setup except for instead of a vertex color, it's got a Fresnel based off the normal map, and the specular power is set about 250 because it does no good before 50. Once it's 50, you'll be getting some interesting effects that you want, but it's the desaturated version of the wall because it's so plain. There's no extra information there needed, that the line doesn't do any damage.
So taking comparisons of the end piece that I made that has been shown in the previous parts of the video, I started to look at other games based around the idea of using graveyards. So I really just took a Google search and went graveyards in video game. This was kind of done a few weeks before because the last part of the puzzle for me was the lighting, because I still think that's kind of difficult because you're lighting something that's still dark but it still needs to have light to say that there's still light in it. So I started with Deathspank, was the first game I found that I looked at and just thought how they lit this, so you see in the background how everything is just dark around here and then there's light in the middle of just like these purpley lights, so you can still see everything that's going on that's happy. This in comparison is more colourful and more not what I was looking to aim for. This again from Drawn, it's kind of what I'm going for, but it's still the cartoony effect that I didn't want to have. But it still gives a very good example of what you can do in the game with composition and saying what's going on. Say with the composition of these trees here and this portal here, and you can see there's the background, there's nothing there. Mine kind of has that with the trees in the background, but doesn't work as well as I would hoped it to, which I think better trees would have done that. This bit from the Ghostbusters game was more to show the brickwork in the composition than anything in the comparison. I wanted it to see that it's more of a haunted house than anything else, than it just being there's this mansion in the middle of a graveyard somewhere maybe, and you can't really tell it's a graveyard because there's so much going on. So this game you can't really tell what's going on apart from the battle. So it was kind of helpful to be like how the brickwork should look and how it should be effective with vertex painting and stuff like that. This one is just through a walkthrough really, but this is the more of the where I got the idea for fog, as you see the fog around here and the light from the moon, which I wanted to put originally a big moon, but it couldn't really work out in the end for time wise, and just because I didn't want to put something that'd look badly and just be like, oh, well, I should have that better in this part of the video. So this one's from Harry Potter, but to be honest, I find this too dark. The colours are what kind of I took from it, but the colours in this I think are a lot better in the fog in the background, but it's still too much going because it's more concept art than actually from the game. This one's from Warcraft. I wanted to find this one specifically because it's this part of the video, because I thought looking back at it, it's something that's like the go-to. I think something from Red Dead and the Undead Nightmare version would something to look at again, but that's really just that game with zombies added to it. So this with the graveyard and the house in the background is more composition and how you could get like the grounds to look, but because mine's more stone based, it looks different to it. Thanks for watching.